Election Day is exactly 8 weeks away, and here in the Bay State, there are several ballot questions that voters will be weighing in on.
Today, veterans, elected officials, and community members gathered in support of Question 4. And Western Mass News reporter Reagan Lockery joins us live in studio after hearing stories from veterans. Reagan, what is Question 4?
Well, Abby and Chris, the residents I spoke to are hoping to get access to natural psychedelic medicines to help with things like OCD and PTSD. And ballot question 4 may make this dream a reality.
Anna Demi is an Amherst resident and expecting mother. But before she was married and pregnant, she was a freshman in college when her childhood diagnosed obsessive compulsive disorder started to get overwhelming.
Fast forward, and 3 years into college, I'm on 8 different psychiatric meds. And my psychological stability is wavering. I start messing around with recreational substances, and I graduate a full-fledged drug addict, still on my 8 psychiatric medications. In 2019, I had an overdose and was finally awakened to the reality that something needed to change in my life or I was going to end up dead.
However, since finding cyclobin, a type of psychedelic medication, which is not currently legal in Massachusetts, Demi was able to kick her drug habit and come out the other side. Research from several medical institutions, including Mass General, show that natural psychedelic medicines like cyclobin can be a life-saving mental health tool. Another Western Mass resident who benefited from psychedelics is Astronauta Gamzee. Gamzee suffers from both OCD and agoraphobia. She tells Western Mass News when the pandemic hit, her worst fears were realized.
When that happened, I found myself really paralyzed, unable to go out and interact with people comfortably without, a deep fear of, contracting viruses.
And similar to Demi's story, a friend suggested Gamzee try a regimen of cyclobin microdosing. And she tells us that's what finally gave her her life back. And with the November election just weeks away, people like Gamzee and Demi may soon see some relief. A yes on question 4 would mean that natural psychedelic medicine therapy would be allowed, administered under the supervision and guidance of a trained licensed professional at regulated therapy centers. However, retail sales of psychedelic medicines will not be permitted under question 4. And as both a city councilor and mental health therapist, Zeta Govan feels question 4 must pass.
We use drugs all the time, right? Doctors prescribe Prozac, they prescribe all different kind of pharmaceuticals. I think this would be another tool that doctors would have to help patients.
Psychedelic medicines have also been known to help those with post-traumatic stress disorder. As a Vietnam veteran, Sergeant Gomez feels fellow vets and those who suffer from PTSD should have access to anything that can ease their pain.
These people gave their best for our nation. We have to do the best that we can for them.
And State Representative Carlos Gonzalez agrees.
I know naysayers will say we're bringing in other drugs and soon we make it legal with medical, and then we'll make it legal for everybody, just like we did with marijuana. I'm not a supporter of that. I'm a supporter of the decisions of individuals with their medical experts to provide access to whatever measures are possible to assist with the mental health issues that are impacting our veterans, but also our community in general.
I did reach out to the Massachusetts Coalition for Safe Communities, which is leading the opposition on question 4. They provided us with a statement that reads in part, "It is shameful to deliberately mislead and provide false hope to our brave service members who are battling mental health issues with this dangerous ballot question." It goes on to say there is no requirement for a licensed medical professional to be on site and little regulation protecting those battling severe mental illness or other medical issues. Reporting live in studio, Reagan Lockery for Western Mass News.